So the Liberal leader called for a federal election to take place on April 28th, just over a month away from now. Our guest is here to look at some of the key themes that we should be tracking in this campaign. We're joined by Shachi Kurl, president of the Angus Reid Institute. Shachi, always great to see you. I've seen at least one commentator say the only issue that matters in this campaign is how we're going to deal with this aggressive trade war launched by the US. Is there any truth to that?
That does seem to be the issue that Canadians are dialed into, that they're paying the most attention to, and that is living rent-free in their heads. And you've certainly seen this reaction from Canadians around instilled pride and nationalism and that sense of elbows up. And it has been a time where politicians who are sort of matching that energy and that style of communication have been doing very well. Look at what happened with Doug Ford just a couple of weeks ago with his election. And I would note that now former Premier Justin Trudeau, so unpopular for so long, left on something like a 5-year high because of his speeches and rhetoric around the Trump factor. But, Andrew, there's another factor, and it is the fact that the cost of living, cost of housing, inflation, the economy is still seen as the #1 issue in the country today, as identified by Canadians when we ask them in our polls, what do you care about the most? What is the issue that is most important to you? Cost of living and inflation is still way up there, and it actually supersedes the tariff and trade issue by a little bit. Now, arguably, both are intertwined, but what we're seeing is, that domestic issue of what's happening with my household wallet is still something that hasn't gone away. If anything, it's very much front and center. Are the Liberals vulnerable on that front? I mean, they have been in office for the past 10 years. At the moment, it's really interesting on any number of issues, starting with who would make best prime minister, moving on to who would be best to deal with a Trump White House on the trade wars, and in terms of alleviating cost of living, dealing with cost of housing, health care, taxation. Right now, the advantage across almost every single one of those metrics is with Mark Carney. So Pierre Poilievre, who was sitting on a massive lead through 2024, is really at the last minute, at the last stretch in this marathon, because really, let's face it, 5 weeks. I know it's only day 3 of the campaign, but 5 weeks over a 15-month period is nothing, is having to play a lot of catch up. We started to see him pivot a little bit to yesterday with some new messaging, emphasizing the case for change, which I think has been lost a little bit. For many Canadians, the reasons why they were so ticked off with the Liberals over the last particularly 5 years kind of went out the door. It's the baggage that Justin Trudeau took with him. And they're looking at Mark Carney as sort of a bit of a reset. So let's see if that holds. That's sort of that's the one thing that we know about, but we don't know how it will land or how it will change. The other thing is that we know that the Liberal vote at the moment is much softer in terms of commitment than the Conservative vote. Conservative voters are much more likely to be locked in their vote, say, no way, no how am I changing my mind? But Liberal voters, many of them who have been drawn from the ranks of the NDP is down to single digits now, and many of whom who have come back from the Conservatives are still saying, look, I might change my mind. And so we really have to understand whether this new house that the Liberals are trying to build is built on a sandy land or on concrete.
I like the quasi-biblical reference there, the house built upon sand. Sorry, just very, did you say the inflation issue is one in which the Liberals have credibility or they don't?
They do. They do.
Why would they? Sorry, Shachi, but haven't they overseen this big run-up in prices?
So this is all part of, call it the Mark Carney sugar high or the reset. And I just mentioned to you, Andrew, so much of that anger that Canadians felt towards the Liberals, despite what you just rightly and empirically and factually pointed out, the Liberals presided over a lot of this. But despite that, right now, Canadian voters are looking at the two alternatives most likely to form government in front of them, Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives, the Liberals under Mark Carney, and they're saying, well, this guy's a central banker. Maybe he's going to take the Liberals in a different direction. We like the cut of his jib. So the big question is, are the Conservatives going to be successful in reminding Canadians why they were so ticked off at the Liberals for so long to begin with, or is it something that is retrospective now, and Canadians have drawn a line, if you will, under the Trudeau years and are treating Carney as though he too represents change? That's the part that we're watching for, that we have to figure out.
Now, obviously, Pierre Poilievre must have been very disappointed with the drop in the Tory support relative to the Liberals, or a Liberal resurgence. But you said over the past little while, Poilievre has come back a bit in public esteem?
No, what I said was that as of yesterday, we started to hear about a change or a reset in terms of the way he is communicating to Canadians. And what I mean by that, no, it's perfectly like so what I mean by that is, you know, even while Trump was threatening a trade war that had everybody in this country freaking out, Poilievre was talking about axing the tax. Even after Mark Carney said, fine, I'll kill the consumer carbon tax, he was still focused on that darn tax on the industrial level, whereas the parade had sort of moved on.
Sure.
So he has reframed, he's trying to reframe some of this rhetoric, trying to make the case for change. The big question is, will he be successful? You know, I said about 2.5 months ago, at the end of last year, Andrew, that it would take a significant act of self-destruction on part of the Conservatives to blow the kind of lead that they were sitting on. What I didn't anticipate, and I think what many people didn't anticipate, was that act of self-destruction would actually not be an act, but sort of doing nothing in the moment, because we heard quite a bit of silence or just status quo from the Conservatives at a time when the mood and the priorities of Canadians were changing very rapidly in the face of the Trump threats.
Thank you very much, Shachi. Really appreciate it.